Hi everyone, today we're going to be going over GitLab CI. We're going to go over this one first just because it's deeply integrated into GitLab itself, and we actually are able to learn some more about generally what is going to happen in a CI pipeline. There's a lot to go over, so let's get right into it. GitLab may seem like the forgotten younger brother in comparison to GitHub, the one that doesn't quite look like the parents or the brother. So the parents just kind of keep punting it off to people that look more like them because they fit in more and they get forgotten by their parents. But GitLab actually has a lot of powerful DevOps tools and CICD integrations, and is actually the best on the market for them because it is natively installed as well. It's honestly the fastest way that you can get started with CICD without a lot of ramp up and configuration. So it's great if you are just starting to learn CICD. Writing tasks in GitLab CI is supremely simple because we're just using a very clean, human readable format called a YAML, yet another markup language. It also has a lot of tools in its little tool case that you may not actually end up using, but it'll help you down the road when you do want to try and integrate some more advanced features into your pipelines. The best part about this too is you can use this on any project that you actually start up. You just started up on their platform, you can use their CI/CD and start playing with it. While it may seem like a pain to move all of your projects from GitHub over to GitLab, you don't need to do that. You can just set up a profile over at GitLab and run the projects that you want to use their pipeline for there and keep your other projects in GitHub. I know recruiters still like to see GitHub, but they also don't mind seeing GitLab. It's just work. All of it's work that you can put in. Just do it. But also this way, you can keep a lot of your repos out of the hands of big evil Microsoft because everyone doesn't like those big companies all the time. GitLab's independent. They're the rebellion. They're the alliance. They're the underdogs. Go with them. Getting started with the CI is no big deal, and you should get started without any issues. Just set up the account as you would with GitHub, getting all your credentials from your local machine and ensuring that they go into the SSH keys and all that kind of good stuff that you need to do. If you've already set up a GitHub account, it's exactly the same. You know what you're doing. You can do it without a problem. Now, go do that now. Set it up. I can wait. I can wait until you come back. Just pause the video, and once you're ready, come back, unpause me. I won't mind. I'm not waiting. I mean, right now I'm physically waiting. Jokingly. Make a new project and keep it as bare bones as possible, so that way we can learn it without any additional kerfuffed and cruft getting in the way. If you want, you can use a project that you're already working on, so that way you can kind of integrate some of the tests that you may be running on your own while following along. On my side, I'm going to keep it as bare bones as possible, so that way you can follow along even if you don't have a project, and you can just kind of learn some of the basics of what it's doing. Like I said before, there's only one thing that you need to do to enable the feature. Add the file GitLab CI to your project. So this file here, GitLab makes it easy, and they actually have a button that you can press right here. So if you press that button, it will automatically generate that file for you. And they have templates and a few other things that you can utilize to make sure that it goes through there. You got CICD running on your project. Just kidding, you need to do a bit more than that. This file is going to be written in roughly 3 parts. 1, stages. This is where you decide how you want to work split up. Tests, building, linting, deploying, etc. So you're going to have those in a list just underneath here. The second thing that you're going to put in here is variable. So I don't have one right here, but I can add it pretty easily. They actually also have an integrated web IDE, so that way you can play around with this without having to open up your own terminal or your own setup. So if I go in here, I can go variables, and I can set up variables in here the same way that you would set up any environment variable. So on var, and it's just going to be hello. The third thing in the file is jobs. This is where you define the task that you want completed. Writing these out isn't much of a problem. The file is YAML format, which means you need to structure everything in hierarchical through tabs. So as you can see with this first test here, all the things that are going to be under this test are tabbed in once, and it's defined basically as a dictionary or as a hash, depending on what programming language you're used to. As key value pairs. So image and then the actual image here, stage, test here, And then you have script, which is a list of commands that are going to be running in this job. I suggest when you are working with this, I haven't done it myself here because this is just a mess around one, setting your tabs to just be 2 spaces. YAML can be kind of a pain, and depending on where you're using it at, can scream at you very loudly if you don't use tabs and spaces properly. Some places want specifically 2 spaces, so I preferentially like to use just 2 spaces, but set my tab to be 2 spaces. I'm not going to be pedantic though. You can use it however you want. I just suggest this way. You get the best of both worlds of tabs and spaces, and be the enlightened centrist you were always meant to be. Plus again, YAML is not going to yell at you about having your tabs or your spaces wrong. Stages are a logical construct of your CI file. These are defined in a list and run in the order that they are defined. Every job that exists must exist in one of these stages. So I have my test stage. This test stage is going to run first. All jobs that are defined as test will run in this test stage, and then all jobs in the build stage will run. So if you have just tests defined in your test stage and some RSpec tests defined in your test stage as well, they will run at the same time. So they run in parallel. So you can see I have test 1 and I have test 2. Both of these tests will run at the same time when I actually go to run my pipeline. If you define the build stage after your test stage, the jobs in your build stage will wait until all the jobs in the test stage succeed before running. So this build here, if I can highlight it, this build here will run after all these tests finish. If one of these tests happen to fail, then the entire pipeline will fail out and bunk, and the build will not start because the test has failed. So I'm actually just going to quickly commit this, commit to master branch, because I am a freak. But you can see down here, I'm just going to pop into this pipeline here. Pipelines. You define your file, and when you actually commit to your branch, it'll actually define the pipeline and start running it. So I'll go in here. I will explain a little bit of what's happening on the back end afterwards. So as you can see, I have test 1 and 2. These ran successfully. So now these build jobs here will run, and they all run at the same time. They succeeded, so not a problem. But if I go back here, I'm going to quickly pop in. I'm just going to actually add an additional, just edit it very quickly. Go in here. This one says echo. I actually wanted to exit 1. So if I exit 0, that means it's a success. Exit 1 is a failure in the mind of what this is going to run as. So I'm going to commit those changes. I'm going to pop into the pipelines on the side over here. I'm going to open up this pipeline. You'll notice both of these are running right now. They may take a minute before they actually finish. We're just going to be patient with GitLab. It will do what it needs to do. So now you can actually see that this test failed. If I click into this test, it can say exit 1. The job failed because that job failed, obviously. So if you had a test and the test failed, if I pop back into the actual pipeline here, these build jobs did not run because the test failed. So it's kind of a safe space in here, so that way you're not building on bad code. Jobs, going back into the actual file here. Jobs are the tasks that you want to run. Every job must be defined with 3 definitions. You have the stage, so you're defining when you want this to run. So this test 1, I want this to run with all other tests at the same time. You have your script. So your script are the instructions that you're giving to the job. If you have a test script, you would call it here. So if I had in this repository something that was called test JavaScript, I would actually come in here and say that would be what I want to run. As well, these are the scripts that are going to be running against the image, which I'll talk about in a second. Image. GitLab needs to know what Docker image to actually use and run your script on. What is the container for the job? What contains this particular job? So I've just set it to Ubuntu latest because I wanted something simple to give you an idea. If you are running JavaScript or anything, you can just use that specific JavaScript image or Python or anything. There's a Docker image for just about anything out there that you can use. So these are the three main things that you need in a job definition. You can have additional things in here, and there's plenty that you can put into the definition of your job, but these are the ones that if you don't have any one of these three, your job will fail. GitLab will yell at you and say it is invalid. So up here, and actually when it comes into GitLab, it actually lints it and checks for you. So if I edit this and I take out this image and I'm just going to commit it. Really? This is fine? Wow, GitLab, way to make me look bad. Okay, I guess it just runs on whatever image it wants to. So image is not necessary, but fine. Okay, whatever. Thanks, GitLab. All right, so I'm actually going to take out the stage as well. So I'm not going to have an image, and I'm not going to have a stage defined in this test one. If I come down here and commit changes, really? Really? It's just calling me out? Okay. So it's not best practice to not define these things. It just runs anyway. Well. All right. GitLab has kind of made a liar of me. You should still have these in here so that way everything is defined in the way that you want it to be run. But if I actually take away this test stage, I will make this invalid somehow. See, here we go. This GitLab configuration has an invalid test. One job, chosen stage does not exist. So because I've taken that out, it doesn't understand where it's going to put this and what it's going to do. So it doesn't understand what stage to set this at anymore because test is not a stage that we have specifically defined now. So I will just add that back in there and take away all the changes that I so lovingly took out. The minimum when you're working with multiple people as well is you do want to have those three defined so that way you can easily go back and use it. The script though, if I do take the script out, it will fail because it doesn't understand what it needs to run. So I'm going to take the script out of test one now. Come down here, commit the changes. And this is where it's actually going to be invalid. Gitlab CI configuration is invalid. Root config contains unknown keys. Test one. So because we haven't defined a script, the job doesn't know what it needs to run. It's useless, and GitLab kind of screams at you and says, please, please tell me, I need to know what this does. So I'm just going to bring it back and run it as hello1 again. There we go. Now it's valid and we have it back to where it should be. There are a few other options that we can actually add into each job definition as well. If we have a lot of jobs that are going to be running very similar to one another, we can actually do an extension. So there's a few different ways of doing this. My personal favorite is through just the extends key. So this job here is called test extension. And I have a little dot in here. So this defines it as not a job itself, but a template of a job. And I have this Ubuntu, the image defined, the stage defined, and the script defined here as well. If I go in here and look at extended test 2, for example, I have this key here called extends. This actually, when GitLab is trying to run the CI, is going to look for this template and take everything that's in here and kind of plaster it onto this job. So when it's actually running, the image Ubuntu build and script are all going to be smacked onto there. So for an example for this one, image, script, image, stage, and script are all going to be slapped on top of here, but I don't have to write it out multiple times. On the second one here, you can actually overwrite it, because what it's doing is it's doing a merge between each one, and the non-templated, the one that's actually calling the template, is the one that's actually going to override the template. So because I've defined this script here with echo, I overwrote this test. If I jump into the pipeline, and I find that test in particular, you can see I've echoed out and I said I overwrote the test. So when it's doing that merge, it's going to go, the one that has the most priority is the one that is calling the template over the template itself. Another keyword that we might have seen in here is this only. So this only, there are two usually with it. There's only, and then there's except. Only tells GitLab when to run this job. So this job, when it's defined as only, it's only going to look for refs called master. So on the master pipeline, this test will run. On any other branch that's not master, this test will not actually run at all. So we can actually kind of work out and make jobs that are defined only for master or only for feature branches. The except is the exact opposite of that. If I were to change this to except master, which I will do very quickly, down here, and change this over to accept. Pop down here, commit changes. And I will pop into the CICD here. In the latest pipeline, this one right here, you can see that job is no longer running because I have said that that job is not allowed to run on master. It can run on any other branch, but it cannot run on master. You may be asking yourself now, how does all of this work? What is happening? So what GitLab does is they have multiple clusters that they have set up throughout the world that are just running in Kubernetes. When you push and you want to define this pipeline, each one of those job definitions is sent to one of these clusters. It then is put into a middleware called a runner. That runner looks at your definition. It generates a job in Kubernetes, a pod essentially. It spins that up. It watches that job, makes sure that any changes that it wants to grabs the logs for it and actually puts it into, so that way we can see it in the pipeline itself. So this is actually being pulled from Kubernetes from the GitLab runner. And once this job is finished, it will actually kill that pod. So that pod will no longer exist after this job is finished. It's Docker and Kubernetes all the way down. So that gives you a really rough beginning to working with the GitLab CI. Obviously, there are some things that it kind of automatically puts in there for you, but now you know how to just jump into a project, build a CI, make it script-wise how you want to, build up some tests, get your build going, and you have a rough idea of what it is. I'll have some more in-depth on the actual advanced cases of how this will work if you have a larger project, for example, but I'll get into that in another video. For now, you get a rough start. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, like it. If you have any feedback or a particular small issue, comment down below and I will try and get back to you. As well, subscribe for more videos. Watch the next video for more fun as well as we learn more about DevOps. If you want to support the channel or you have a larger issue than just a simple comment will do, go to buymeacoffee.com/Neerlo. Link is down in the description and I will try and get back to you, or you can just feed the fiend and give me coffee. For now, that's all. Have a good one.